Hi, everybody. Welcome back, or welcome to the final session for Sunday, April 5th of the Lipgloss and Aftershave Virtual Skincare Festival. I am Jenny. We have a very special guest with us today with a ton of information. But before we get started, Barry has a few details to fill you in on.
I'm your housekeeper. This is the housekeeping notes for the session. We are that was my maid's hat, Drew.
Clean your screen.
So if you have questions, please put them in the question and answer box. If you have comments like, this is so much fun, I love DMK, Drew's a rock star, put those over in the chat box. I'd announce two other upcoming webinars that we have. One is on April 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's going to be Sell From Your Sofa, where we talk about how to leverage the digital space in order to sell those amazing dropship products that everybody's offering. The next is an entire day of education, and it's a day of education on how to manage the comeback. We're doing it on Earth Day. That's April 22nd from 10 a.m. Eastern to 7 p.m. Eastern. And it's how to grow. That's my tree. Ooh. How to grow in the comeback. We've got a lineup of business consultants that will blow your mind. We've got Caitlin Durning, Tazeen Jamal, Maxine Drake, Julie Penke, Darcy Debonarde, Lori Crete, and Carol Phillips. Like a multiple 9-hour festival of how to manage the comeback in a very strategic way to go. And then finally, replay for all of the festival sessions, in case you missed any of them, will be on the Lipgloss and Aftershave app. You can get it in the App Store or on Google Play. And with that, Drew, we're gonna mute our mics and we're gonna turn off our cameras. You've got it. You can share your screen and you're good to go.
All right, awesome. So Alexa, turn off the music and we'll be ready to rock and roll. So Barry, can you please tell me, are you good to go? Can you see my screen just fine right now yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, so let me hit. There it is. The giant green button that says share screen, is that the one I'm supposed to?
Hit that one and then select the screen you want to share. There you go.
Okay, cool. All right, so we're good to go. You guys got me?
I have you. You could go into presenter view if you want. Well, right now I think you're in present. There you go.
All right, cool. Yeah, we're good to go. All right, thanks guys. And welcome to, I guess, Barry, I think you were saying it in the lobby while we were waiting. I don't think we saved the best for last. I mean, Barry, if you're going to take it home at the end, and Jenny, if you're going to take it home at the end, I guess we saved the best for last with you guys. But humbled to be here. This is great. I know that it's a new way of a lot of us connecting. And it's just a new way to really add value to our industry. And I think it's awesome. I applaud both of you for really picking up the mantle of trying to add as much value to our community as possible right now, getting together companies that we see each other at shows quite often, but in this type of format, we don't really get to see each other and really add value back into the community. So with that, thank you very much, and stoked to be here. There's one thing in the description that we talked or that Barry put on the advertisement, and that is we are going to be raffling off some things at the end of the call this afternoon. So please do stick around. We've got some great goodies that we're going to be giving away. I've actually got 2 sets of them, so I'm excited to be sharing those with you as well. So first and foremost, my name is Drew Coleman. I am the Vice President of Education and Sales for DMK International. And today what we're going to be talking about is business lessons from biology in crisis. There's a lot of key takeaways that we're going to be reviewing, a lot of high-level stuff. We're going to dig in a little bit into some of the roots of the deeper dive into some of the things that we're going to talk about. But for the most part, this is biology 101. We're not going into the thesis biology 800 classes on the 30 minutes that we're going to be spending here together. 2 is I don't take your time lightly at all. This is something that I've been thinking about quite a lot lately, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. There's been some events that have happened in my life in the last few weeks that have caused these lessons from biology to really come to the surface, and I'll tell you all about that. But without further ado, let's jump into who we are and what we're all about. So, DMK, we are the #1 in professional skin revision. Remove, rebuild, protect, maintain. That is a concept of skin revision that if you come in contact with any of our employees, any of our team member, any of our clients that we get to work with every single day, that concept that was given to us by our founder and formulator, Danae, it's something that's regardless of what's changing in the business environment or our personal environments, that concept remains the same every single day. And when I talk about us being in the professional skin revision industry, I don't want you to take my word for it. In fact, I would encourage you right now, whether you're on your phone, on your laptop, your tablet, wherever you're at, check us out on social media. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and go to Instagram, go to Facebook, and pull up at DMK International. You can also follow the hashtags DMKRRPM and hashtag DMK Skin. And the reason I'm suggesting that you go there is because if you're like me, anytime I see any marketing material at all, like if I see something in a brochure or if I see it on a website or just like anywhere in a feed or something like that, first thing I think of is, oh, that was like the best one that they ever did. So obviously they put it in their advertising and, you know, clearly they got that one time out of 1,000 that they did it. Like a really good acne before and after or pigmentation before and after. But don't take my word for it. Check out the feed, and what you're going to see are literally shares from thousands of different therapists from around the globe that are sharing their before and afters, and sometimes just some of the stuff that they do in their clinics every single day. So here's a screenshot of an example of what I'm talking about, whether it be doing treatments or if it's amazing before and after results that they're getting. Go ahead and ask them, like, hey, what's up? What did you do? And many times they're utilizing tools that we were able to provide. And many times there's other things that go along with that. But for us, we know what we're capable of doing and what we're able to help our professionals with. And that's a great way to engage and learn more about us. So while you're there checking out the social medias too, I'm going to be asking a question later for a giveaway at the end of this morning. So while you're there, it might be worth taking a look. And then also talking about the DMK difference. What's that really about? So let me tell you a little bit about our company and what makes us different. We are building a world of confidence through our unique skin revision concept, products, and treatments. We know that we are the leader in paramedical skin revision, created by a scientific visionary, DMK King. In fact, many of us that are on the call today have already used one of his creations. So has anyone on the call this morning or this afternoon used a product called BioFreeze? If you have, Danae is the creator and founder of BioFreeze. He did create that formula, grew that company, and then sold that company off and then poured those resources into DMK. So if you've already used BioFreeze, you can actually get that at like CVS now and Target. But if you've already used that product, you've already used something that he has created. So as a master formulator, as someone that has been in the community literally for decades now, his products and his tools really speak for themselves. We do revise stubborn skin conditions like acne, aging, rosacea, pigmentation, you name it. And we also are for professionals only. That's something that's very important to us. And we will talk about that. And there's some things I'm going to share in just a second that kind of highlight what that means and what we're all about. So DMK is not available online. You're not going to find us on like an Amazon, or you're not going to find us on like a Walmart.com, like a lot of other companies, unfortunately, are going down that route. We do only work with licensed aesthetic professionals. Again, we're based on that concept of remove, rebuild, protect, and maintain. And at the end of the day, it is the therapist that's matching an individual's biochemistry with a proper and appropriate skin therapy that provides those long-term sustainable results for clients. And how do we know this, or how do we know what we're doing? There's a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons is experience. And if you look at the history of the company, we've been around for over 45 years now, and we've actually completed over 1.75 million professional treatments. And that's not a typo, that's 1.7, almost 2 million professional treatments. So when people ask us, you know, or you've all seen that insurance commercial where they say, hey, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. Well, yeah, DMK is that version. We know a thing or two because we've seen literally 2 million skins or two. So when you've done that many treatments and you've worked with that many clients, it's kind of hard to not learn something throughout that trial and error period, especially the early years and then into the future where we are today, improving lives literally on the daily. So we have over 3,500 certified therapists and growing, and internationally available in over 30 countries. But this last paragraph and the last bullet point, as far as the history of our company, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is it is our education for our therapists and medical professionals that really is the key to providing these exceptional results. It really does come down to you as the professional taking the information, the education that's given, and then implementing that daily with clients, both in the treatment room, which we know has changed. We'll talk about that today. And then for the client to improve their skin at home as well. So that's kind of just the overview of the company, a little bit about the history and the background. People ask me all the time, like, well, how did you get into this? Like, what's the story of Drew and DMK? I started actually in college. I was literally sweeping the floors, packing the boxes, mixing up batches of our products, literally. The whole social distancing and wearing the masks and the gloves and all that. I've been doing that literally for years. That's how I actually started on the formulation side of things. And it just gave me a unique perspective before I came back into the industry. Left the company and then went into a career in commercial banking, but that's really kind of where that business acumen came. And one of the things I've always been extremely passionate about and wanted to learn is, why are some businesses more successful than others? And especially in our industry, we know that there are a lot of professionals that are doing really, really well, but they just need help in either business operations, maybe some marketing, or just, overall, how do I run my business the most effective way possible so I can maximize my time with my clients, with my employees, with my staff. And I'm always trying to marry the idea of running a business as efficiently as possible with professional aesthetics and what makes the best of the best, very effective at what they do. And that's how we get to where we're at today. So if you see a couple of kiddos running back and forth behind me, don't worry. I'm at home right now. And my daughter, I think, you have your roller skates on? Yeah, she's got her roller skates on right now. Oh, she's riding her bike, honey? Yep. Oh, she's riding her bike. Good. She's got her helmet on, but she's riding her bike right now. And don't mind me. That's all of us right now. So let's jump into business lessons from biology and talk about what we're going to go over right now. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about systems biology and hierarchy. Something that's especially important and relevant given the environmental effects that we're in right now. We're also going to look at types of relationships. This is another important one as well. We're going to go look at examples and lessons from biology at the cell level, so at one of the smallest levels that we can look at it. And then we're going to take a step back and look at it from the systems level as well. And I don't think we're going to have time. I did prepare a little bit of information as far as at a societal level, but just given the amount of time with Q&A and everything that we're going to be going over, I don't think we're going to have time to reach into those slides, but I will promise you this. I know that that Jenny, I know that Barry are all about education just like we are. So as we progress into the future, I know there'll be other opportunities where we could do a deeper dive into those things. So let me close my window real quick because I think my son's on a skateboard out there. There we go. And I don't want to be distracting any more than we have to. So cool. So let's go over to the hierarchy of biological life. And when you look at systems biology, if you look at basically all life as we know it, we start at the very basic systems and we look at number one, atoms, or the effects of atoms in nature. And of course, naturally, we know that molecules are made up of a cluster of atoms. This is going back to that whole biology 101. And then those atoms, as you add those up with the molecules, those add up to an organelle, and then those organelles are inside of each individual cell, which we're going to talk about today, and what actually influences and what are the lessons that we can learn at the cell level. And then we're multiple cells, when they cluster together, make up different tissues, and the tissues together come to form organs, and then organs combined with other organs become our organ system, and that is what leads to overall organized or organizational systems. We are going to be talking about organisms as far as from a human standpoint and what are some of the lessons that we can learn from them. We're not going to really move into the population and then the community and the ecosystem of biosphere, but the reason I wanted to share this information and bring this up into the conversation today is where do viruses fit into the overall hierarchy of biological life? And I think we can interact. I don't know if I can unmute everyone right now, but I think through our chat boxes, again, I'm not as familiar with Zoom as I am GoToMeeting.
You can interact. They can't talk to you, but they can leave chats or Q&A. And if you want me to monitor the chat, I'll unmute myself and monitor the chat and feed you the information that's coming in.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I think this is intended to be somewhat interactive. It's not just me sitting here rattling off like a talking head for the next 30 minutes. It truly is something that's if there is something or somebody does have a question as we go through, if we don't address it right then and there, we absolutely will save that question till the end, and we'll make sure that we get through all of that, all of the questions that come up.
Okay, cool.
And if for whatever reason, just based on time limitations, if we don't get to the question then, we will make sure that we get those and then respond as a group, because I know that we have access to the who's on the webinar this morning or this afternoon.
So if anybody has anything that they want to ask, they can put it into the chat box and I'll feed it to Drew as it comes in.
All right, awesome. So thank you very much, Barry. So again, just thinking of, again, overall hierarchy of biological life, where does a virus fit in this cycle or these different organizational hierarchy of life? And especially when we're talking about COVID-19 or just viruses in general. Viruses, a couple things. Number one, there's arguments in biology or whatnot of whether or not they are alive. They essentially are clusters of proteins, and a lot of them are very fragile, especially the COVID-19 that we've come to learn over the last several weeks. Viruses in and of themselves cannot replicate like cells. So we know that cells split through mitosis and meiosis, depending on the type of cell, but viruses cannot do that. So what do viruses need to be able to survive? And the answer is they need organisms. They need a host. They need life. They need something in this cycle that we're looking at from a cell on up to the overall ecosphere, if you will, something to latch onto so that they can essentially hijack that host and then replicate themselves by going on to the next cell of life. So when we think of what we're doing right now, literally, social distancing and staying apart, we are robbing the virus of its opportunity to spread from one host to the next. So we are taking back that control of what it naturally will do throughout our society and what viruses do throughout all of life. It's not just limited to humans. So it's a good thing, and I applaud everyone for doing it and for making sure that we are all playing our own part, washing the hands and making sure everything. Oh, in fact, I've even got my Ultra Sand right here that I'm gonna double sanitize myself as we're on the call today, because it is something that you can kill the virus like that with what I just sprayed on my hands. You can kill it by washing your hands. You can kill it by, naturally, it will just die off if it doesn't come in contact with another host over a certain amount of time. But that's not unique to just this virus. That's all viruses in general. And it is something to note and worth bringing up, because as we go through, there are different types of relationships that we're going to talk about in biology. And it's important to understand those principles and how those relate to business. So let's jump over to our next slide on relationships in biology. So biological relationships, we know that there are a couple different types, and those are based off of the principles of symbiosis. If we go back again to biology, this is probably in biology 102 or 201 or whatever the different levels are. There are 3 different types of relationships of symbiosis. So we know that, again, symbiotic relationships have a close relationship between 2 different organisms. The relationships can be commensal, mutualistic, or parasitic. Let me give you a couple examples of those. So first and foremost, commensal relationships, those are the ones that one organism is benefiting while the other one is not harmed or really doesn't benefit. Let me give you an example. If we think of like a married couple that they've been together for like 40 or 50 years, chances are one of them is just there and the other one is benefiting, but the other one's not really harmed, but they're not really adding value to the relationship either. Why is Barry laughing so hard on that one? So when we look at those relationships, they're just there. You know, again, are they benefiting? Well, someone's benefiting. They're still coming around. They still are showing up every day. But the other one might not really be harmed. So they're just like, all right, well, I'm still going to stick around. But again, they're not doing any harm to that other organism either. That's called a commensal relationship. A mutualism relationship, these are symbiotic relationships where actually both parties benefit. I liken this to that dating or that infatuation period or early years of any marriage, and that you guys are both into it. Like, you love each other, you're always doing dishes for each other, laundry, oh, hey, let me get the door for you. It's very symbiotic, it's very mutual, there's an added benefit to each party. You're always looking out for each other's best interest. And ideally, that's how we should be all the time, right? But the reality is, you know, sometimes it kind of teeters between commensal and mutual over the years. And without getting too much into my own personal life, yeah, I definitely have a very mutual relationship with my lovely wife. So, and then let's get into parasitic relationships. I think we all know who these guys are or these girls are. These are our ex-boyfriends and girlfriends or husbands or partners. These are the ones that basically are taking more than they're giving. And anything we know about parasitic relationships is they are not sustainable. So that's something to keep in mind as you continue forward into not only personal relationships, or as we're just thinking of biology as a whole. This is not just limited to personal. This is actually can be applied at the very cell level and even within our own bodies and even within our businesses as well. So we do have a lot of customers. In fact, most of our customers in our businesses should have a mutual relationship, or mutualism should be expressed as the type of relationship that we have with them, where they're benefiting and then naturally we are benefiting as well. Those are the best types of relationships that we do want to have. So let me show you just a quick example, and I'm actually going to ask the group, and Barry, I'll ask for your help on this one as the comments do come in, because I'm going to go through a very traditional type of business model in our industry and see if we can identify what type of relationship is that's happening between these different levels within this business model. So historically, there have always been skincare manufacturers. Naturally, there are professional therapists that we are all on the phone or on the line, the webinar here today. And then of course, at the end of the day, we all have customers and clients. Traditionally, those manufacturers have supported the therapists in offering training, education, support, and of course, offering the tools to do the job, whether it be the professional treatments that they're doing or even the retail home care that then naturally will go to the client. Additionally, the client is going to be purchasing those products, those home care products from the therapist, and then the therapist would then go back to the manufacturer and continue to purchase the professional back bar treatment products or the home care as well. So let me ask the group, and go ahead, type it in the chat box or the Q&A box. What type of relationship of those three that we talked about is this type of relationship all throughout the hierarchy? What do you guys think?
Tricia says it's mutual.
Awesome. So you're absolutely right. This is what we call mutualism, symbiotic relationship, in that even with three parties, I mean, there can be two parties, there could be multiple parties, there could be literally hundreds, if not thousands of parties involved. But if at root, the value of the individual business owner, the manufacturer, and the customer are all being met, if their needs are being met, then you have what's called a mutualistic or mutualism business relationship. Also known as a sustainable business model and a sustainable type of relationship. And this goes all the way down to the cells of our own body. So the cells of our body understand a mutual relationship, and then even within the business world and even our personal relationships, we understand that as well. So let me give you another example, and let's review again those three types of relationships that do exist out there, from the commensal to the mutual to the parasitic, and tell me what you think this type of relationship would be. So we have a manufacturer, and then ultimately we have an end user, a client, and then the manufacturer would go directly to the client. Could be through their website, could be over the phone, could be like on Amazon or a Walmart.com, however, it could be a fax machine, an email, however they get in contact. And then the client goes and purchases products or tools directly from that manufacturer. And then the therapist essentially is completely left out of that equation. So what do we think this type of relationship is when we're talking about of the three, whether it be commensal, mutualism, or parasitic? Barry, what's the verdict?
First answer was from Diane. One said parasitic, one said commensal. Another commensal, another parasitic.
Yeah, no, it's good, and it's worth noting, because if we look at the overall benefit of where is the benefit lying, and that the client is directly benefiting from the relationship with the manufacturer, but what type of relationship is this between a manufacturer and a therapist? And I think that's where the responses were coming back of, yeah, it can be considered a parasitic relationship, in that one partner is benefiting, but the other one is no longer receiving the benefit of that relationship. And the reason we bring this up at the organizational level or at the organism level of biology is because when we look at sustainable business models within our industry, we know that the previous model that we were talking about is something that provides value to everyone within that channel. When we look at other business models that have been happening over the last several decades, or really the last couple decades, since the growth of the internet and the dot-com boom, what we have seen is that there's been this shift from mutualism to almost parasitic and commensal. And for us as business owners, if we represent that therapist in the middle, we ultimately are going to be looking for a mutualistic relationship, and that's the one that is sustainable from a business standpoint, whereas the other two essentially are not as sustainable. Definitely on the parasitic is not sustainable whatsoever by nature of the definition. So just one key thing that we want to bring up in today's call, because it is at the end of the day all about finding that right partner and finding that balance and homeostasis within our practice and with our clients too. So that's one of the takeaways as far as business techniques from biology. Yeah, go for it.
We had somebody ask, and I think this is a perfect opportunity to answer this question. How would you say DMK's education program for your partners differs from others?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. Perfect. And let's save that to the end, because I'm going to circle back on some additional education resources, and I'll be able to answer that while we're going through those resources. So very good question. Cool. All right, so let's continue on. We said that when we look at what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be looking at the different levels and different types of relationships for our clients in the commensal or the symbiotic relationships. Now we're going to look at it from the cell level, and then we're going to look at it from the systems level. So when we look at the cell, I think all of us remember, if we go back to Biology 101, and we go back and we can think to the different analogies and drawings. I think all of us had that test where we had to label everything that's on the screen right now. You had to pick the organelle and, okay, oh yeah, that's the Golgi apparatus, and that's the RNA and DNA are housed in the nucleus and nucleolus. But we know that the cell is the smallest living of unit of living matter, and that it also works like a factory in that there are inputs and there are outputs. So we must ensure that the cell's internal biochemical reactions are functioning optimally, so that those inputs that do go into that cell, the outputs are functioning the way that they should, and that output is not only a healthy cell, but it's also a mutual relationship to the other cells that are around it. So when we think and we look at the different types of cells that we have within our own bodies, there are actually over 200 different types of cells. And if we were to think of a scenario where maybe there's a cell that's in crisis, one of the most common things that we're going to think about is maybe a sunburn. Not happening too many parts of the US right now, but definitely in the Southern Hemisphere. We're just coming out of summer. And then for those of us that are going into summer in the next couple months, we know we're going to be out there exposing our bodies to UVA and UVB rays literally every single day. In fact, I'm doing it right now, even sitting in my home. So we know that the sun does release UVA, UVB, and UVC rays. The C rays are the ones that are going to bounce off of the atmosphere for the most part. But those UVAs and UVBs, as they work their way down, do enter into our epidermis and even into the dermal layer for UVA. And just jumping through and looking at a few of my notes, and I wanted to make sure that I got this point very, very clear to everyone, is that when we have trauma from radiation in our skin, that is creating essentially a crisis for those skin cells. So when we talk about lessons from biology and what is the crisis that's happening, well, the UVA rays and B, as they come in contact with those skin cells, they are literally damaging the RNA and DNA of our skin cells. So what happens to those cells when that damaged RNA and DNA from the radiation comes? Well, first and foremost, defense mechanisms kick in naturally, and then those cells will automatically start to replace themselves, and meaning that they will self-destruct themselves and start to slough off so that they do not replace themselves with another skin cell with damaged RNA or DNA inside of it. It's part of our own natural biochemical reactions when the RNA and DNA is damaged by radiation. But some of the process that we go through is basically the repair process of rushing immune cells to the area, accompanied by the inflammation that does happen. That's when we start to feel the heat, the swelling. A lot of times even rashes can occur, but as we commonly call it, a sunburn. And as those damaged cells are then not replicated and rejected or pushed out of the epidermis, that's when you start to have the blistering. That's when you start to have any of the swelling that you see in the area, even the weeping that can happen from a sunburn. That's where the blistering happens. So, and the pain. So what can we learn from biology when there's trauma via radiation to the extent of where there actually is a sunburn? Well, first and foremost is before we went out and exposed ourselves to that radiation, was there some sort of SPF that could have been applied to our skin prior to going out? Was there a prophylactic that we could have adhered to where we wouldn't have that type of damage, or at least a severe damage to our skin? And then how does that ultimately relate to our businesses, especially given the overall environment that we're in? Well, number one, there are a lot of things in the business world that could be considered our business SPF. Number one is understanding that all the business environmental factors that are happening right now are something that we all take into consideration. I'm sorry, the risks that we go out into every single day are the risks that every other business owner is dealing with on a daily basis. So the environmental factors, as they do shift and change over time, are not going to go away. There will always be external factors that are going to influence our business. So what is the best SPF as a business owner that we can prepare ourselves with? And that is the understanding and knowledge that no matter what, when I choose to open my doors as a business owner, there are factors that are beyond my control that I'm going to have to navigate along with every other business owner, not just in our industry, but literally in our country, like just in commerce, if you will. So with that being said, what are some of the best ways that we can prepare for that? Number one is acknowledging. So just knowing that I can control my staff, I can control my time, I can control products and services that I offer, but there are certain things beyond my control that I cannot. And once there is a change to the overall external environment, identifying what are the damages that have been done. So what skin cells, like our skin cells automatically go into repair mode or slough off mode. What are those things that are automatically going to happen within my business? And then how can I respond to that? And then lastly, and very simply put, is knowing that there are external environmental factors that can happen, how can I plan for the future the next time this comes around? So as an individual with that radiation that I'm going to be exposed to, I can actually put on SPF the next day and go out and help to protect myself against what I know is going to be there every single day for the next forever. That's just the way the environment is. Within a business community, we know that there will be external risks that are going to happen. So what are the best ways that we can plan for those risks as we go forward? And it's not as simple as, oh, well, just put more money away for a rainy day. There are literally there are things that we can do from an insurance standpoint. There are things that we can do from a continuity planning standpoint that we're going to talk about in just a second, that we can put in place today so that we are better prepared for the future. So let's jump into shifting from the cell level, and then I want to go into the systems level. So Barry, were there any questions that came through on that one? Oh, sorry, I think we got you muted. Yep.
The only question that came through was, how do you buy Danae's book? But I assume that you would get to that at the end with the resources.
This guy right here?
Yeah.
Great question. We'll talk about that in just a second. Yeah, we will go over that at the end. That's one of the things that we're going to talk about. I think I'm feeling pretty flush. I think my pain medicine finally kicked in for what we're going to talk about right now. But,
and then one more.
Yeah, go for it.
When someone becomes a DMK clinic, do you provide a complete list of ingredients on your products?
Yes, yes, and yes. And in fact, the quick answer on that one is you can actually go to our website right now and everything's listed right there.
Awesome.
Great question.
Thank you. Yeah,
definitely. So let's go over to human biological system. And in fact, the impetus for the topic of what we're going over today, I think it was Barry, you shot me a text, right? And then I sent you basically my sob story of what had happened 3 weeks ago. and like, okay, well, what's a good topic that we should talk about? And the topic, basically the question that kind of kept on coming into my mind is, does biology hold the key to unlock what we should be doing in our businesses during crisis? And the impetus for this topic of business lessons from biology came from an experience 3 weeks ago. My son and I were up at Big Bear here in Southern California. We were snowboarding. Gorgeous day. I mean, perfectly sunny. in the morning. It was kind of foggy everywhere else on the drive up, but just beautiful Blue Jay day. And we're out there and having a great time. And it was our very last run. And I said, hey, let me show you this trick that I can do. And so I did the trick. But as I was coming out of the trick, my snowboard caught an edge, and I ended up landing right on my right rib cage, kind of on my back. And normally I put an arm out to kind of break my fall, but in this case, unfortunately, I didn't. So what ended up happening is I ended up breaking and fracturing and displacing 2 ribs on my back where they connect. And then one of those ribs ended up puncturing my right lung. In doing that, the lung proceeded to collapse, but I was none the wiser. Immediately, I knew that there was something wrong, but I wasn't sure what overall was going on inside of my body other than this doesn't feel like just broken ribs to me. So long of the short of it, tried to get back to the car to get over to urgent care, get an x-ray and all that. And I went, tried to start the car, but it was so just kind of winded, and I really couldn't take on any more oxygen in my body. So I noticed that my extremities started to get a little bit cold. My vision started to blur quite a bit, and everything just kind of started to slow down. My hearing, things were going in and out. And I said, oh my God, this is hypoxia. This is exactly what happens when, hey, there's my wife walking in the background. So, she tried to duck down, but it's going to happen. It's just the way we work now. So it's like, babe, you can come in, it's fine. So anyway, my body was going into shock. It was going into hypoxia. And I never experienced anything like this before in my life. And I've had a lot of injuries. I've done tons of sports, all that kind of stuff, broken rib. I've broken ribs before in the past, so I already had 2 other experiences where I knew exactly what that felt like. But I just felt like, this seems like it's a little bit worse. So anyway, I told my little guy, I said, hey, let's go over to first aid. I literally cannot drive right now. So we did. Went to the hospital, or took an ambulance to the hospital. Come to find out the lung had collapsed even more. Stuck a chest tube in, transferred me down to Southern California UCI. Ended up watching me for a couple days, and that's when Barry texted me. I think it was either like right when I was getting out, or maybe I was still in there. I honestly, it's kind of all fuzzy now. And so I ended up coming home, start the recovery process, and I'm just thinking about this, there are things, especially now, like given now what everything that with coronavirus, COVID, all of that, that we as business owners can do and learn from other areas that might not seem so natural to learn from. And going through that shock experience and going through that trauma, I thought, I wonder if there is a good analogy, and if it does make sense, from systems biology and business operations. When our bodies go into crisis, is there a connection that can be made for our businesses so that when we're working with our employees, or we're looking at the overall environment, is there a way that we can come out of this stronger than initially when we went in? And the more I thought about it, I've literally been thinking about this for a good 3 weeks while I'm laying there recovering. And yeah, so there are. So let's go through that. And I want to talk about specifically some of those symptoms that happen within our own bodies naturally when crisis does hit. And then also within our businesses, what are some of the symptoms and things that do happen, and then ultimately what we can do to take action and make sure that we come out of it stronger. So, but let's jump into it. Well, okay, yeah, back to the systems. We know that our bodies have 11 different systems that are working in tandem right now, literally as we eat, sleep, drink, whether we're aware of it or not, they are working and doing exactly their thing. So when there's a crisis in our bodies, let's say a major trauma, like the accident that I was just talking about, there are certain symptoms and certain things that happen. Number one, when your body goes into shock, you are going to experience reduced blood flow. There's a number of reasons for that. But ultimately, what the body is trying to do is it's trying to conserve and maintain life in the vital organs and systems that are prominent for survival. That's really what it comes down to. So by reducing blood flow, what's happening is actually the blood vessels are they're shrinking. They're actually becoming more narrow. So the body is restricting blood flow to the extremities. So I gave the experience of, I told you that I could feel like my fingers and my arms were starting to get colder. And that's because the blood vessels were literally getting smaller and not allowing as much blood to flow to those extremities. So one of the things that you will see when someone does go into shock, or a crisis is that they'll have a clammy or lifeless skin. And that's because those capillary loops at the very end of the epidermal dermal junction don't have the fresh oxygenated blood that they normally would have when they are healthy. That's why. That's just a biological reason. Two, because there is reduced blood flow to those extremities, the heart rate actually goes up. So your heart starts to pump faster and your heart rate does go up because your body can sense that it's not providing the blood to those extremities. So one system says, stop blood flow. The other one says, pump more blood flow. And then that's what sets off a trigger of chest pain that can happen with individuals. And this is where some of the anxiety can kick in. And then ultimately, if the decreased blood flow makes its way up to the brain, which it will eventually, this is something where I said my vision was narrowing, and confusion starts to set in. That's specifically because blood flow actually decreases in those other parts of the body as well. So some call it shock, some call it hypoxia, some call it crisis, call it whatever we want. But the biggest thing to understand is that when there is a major trauma to our bodies or to our systems, these are natural reactions that happen within our own bodies that we cannot control. So there's not like a real way to meditate our way out of it. Essentially, it's just what's happening, and it's our body kickstarting its known natural survival techniques. And bottom line, it is here to ensure that that we make it to the next day, that we survive. So when we look at that analogy from a systems biology standpoint, the business lessons that we're going to be taking away from that is that when there is a biological system shock, if you will, in the body, the natural tendencies or the natural systems go into and initiate the compensatory systems to ensure survival. So it's actually the body that initiates it. For us as the business owner, when there's a shock to our system or to our business, like what's happening right now every single day, it is up to the business owner to initiate these compensatory systems so that we can ensure survival for our business. And I can't say this enough, and I've actually got some exercises that we can go through, and we're going to document some things here on the next slide. But if I'm going to spend any time just kind of sitting on one thing, it's going to be this one. Again, when our body's going to shock or there's crisis that's happened, our body's natural reaction to ensure survival, it just gets kickstarted automatically. Our bodies do it anyway. When it comes to business, when there's a shock to the system, when there's crisis, like what's happening right now, it's up to the business owner to initiate those survival tactics that we're going to go over right now. Why? Because it's not enough to say, oh, this will blow over and things will be fine in the next couple months. The reality is that's just a denial tactic that happens in survival mode, or it's sticking our head in the sand is another way of putting it. The business landscape has changed. And one thing that is unique about the current situation that we're in right now is how quickly everything has happened. All of us were here in 2008 and 9, and we saw all that, and it kind of took some time to go through, and it was very unique in its own set of circumstances with the housing crisis. Then we go back to 2000 and 2001, and that was the whole stock market, boom and bust, .com, all of that. Again, it took a little bit more time to go through, and it was just kind of a normal, natural economic cycle that we were going through. This thing, you guys, I mean, we all knew 3 weeks ago, we were all running our business as normal. And all of us have been told, for the most part, that are on the call today, that we cannot go into our clinics and work with our clients. It's actually illegal to do that right now. So that's new. That and how quickly that happened is something that is unique to what we're talking about. So when we talk about crisis now, from a business standpoint, is that literally the way that we've made a livelihood has changed. So what do we do? You know, what are those things that we can do? And as a business lesson that we can take from shock of the body and relate that to our business? Well, our compensatory systems are up to us as the CEOs, as the owner of our businesses to manage this process. So here are some things, and you can write these down as we go through them right now. I'm going to give you some concrete things that can be done immediately, starting today, not waiting until Monday, like literally today, that we can put into place so that we ensure that our survival is there, that our businesses will be here in 6, 12, 18, 2 years, however many years on down the line. First and foremost is diagnose. Diagnosing is one of the most important things. So acknowledging that there is an issue, that there is a problem. Let me give you an example. I just told you that our treatment rooms are closed. I didn't need to tell you that. So if our treatment rooms are closed, that means that our service revenue is how much right now? That guy right there. So if my service revenue is absolutely zero right now, I need to acknowledge that. But are there other ways that I can generate revenue for my clinic right now? And the answer is 100%. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we're gonna need to grow those other revenue areas by 100% to overtake whatever the amount of my service revenue was in the past. So number one, there's retail home prescriptives. We know are retail products that each one of our clinics, for the most part, should be distributing to our clients anyway. But one of the ways is shifting from a client coming into my clinic to a delivery option. That's one. There's, as Barry had pointed out, some companies are offering drop ship. Another way is utilizing USPS, UPS, and any of the other delivery services that are out there, delivering them ourselves. Yeah, go ahead.
Is DMK drop shipping?
Not at this moment. No, that is something that's, and there's actually a reason for that. That's actually a really good question, Barry. And from the get-go, our overall philosophy and our overall priority has always been to support the professional skincare manufacturer. I'm sorry, the professional skincare therapist and their client, and to galvanize that mutualistic relationship as closely as possible. So we're not here to say like any way is worse than another, but we want our professionals reaching out to our clients literally each week, especially now, to make sure that their clients are safe. They're getting the tools that they need to protect and maintain their skin at home. And until this does kind of clear itself out and we're able to see our clients again, there are other avenues that can get those retail home prescriptives to clients. So very good question though. Yeah.
And what's the minimum opening order for someone to become a DMK clinic?
Talk about that in a little bit. You can get started for as low as, well, today you're actually going to save. It's $99. We'll talk about that. How are we doing on time, by the way? Are we good?
We have about 10 minutes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we're right on schedule then. All right, so yeah, as low as, and a lot of those questions we are going to cover with education makes us different and all of that with the giveaways as well. So when we talk about diagnosing, first and foremost is, yeah, just being honest of the environment and knowing that the business environment has changed. So I mentioned one way as far as delivering retail home prescriptives or finding a way to get those to clients, whether they come pick them up or we drop them off at their home, contactless while practicing social distancing. Other great ways that we have seen and clients being extremely profitable about is, number one, is gift cards. So offering some way to generate revenue from clients right now, even though our doors are not open, that is a great way to keep cash flow maintained and to offer not only the gift card today, but then obviously they're going to come back and then utilize it later along with ideally a retail home prescriptive purchase when they're in clinic. And then three is packages. So offering service packages right now to clients that if they book with you during this stay-at-home orders that we are all currently under, then there is some sort of extra value that's added to your client during this time. So if we know, again, the service revenue is gone, that cannot happen right now, we're going to have to identify other ways that clients are going to increase revenues on those other three areas. And we didn't even get into memberships and other ways that we can do it as well. So that's first and foremost is the diagnosis. Part of that too, when we come into crisis is, or the next point that we're going to talk about is triage. So when we talk about triage, really that just comes down to prioritization. In the medical field, when there's triage happening, it's basically you're prioritizing the cases and the severity. And unfortunately, we've all seen in the media some of the different parts of the world where they had to triage or prioritize certain individuals given different risk factors. Well, for us, first and foremost, the most important thing when it comes to any business is, number one, our employees and our staff. So is their safety taken care of? So when we look at, again, triage of a business, what's the most important thing that we can take care of? And that is the employees and our staff and making sure that they are safe. Once they are safe and that is a priority and that's taken care of, then we go on to the internal business operations and we look at cash flow. So again, we mentioned in the diagnosis phase that if half of our revenue is dried up as far as from a service standpoint, and that's no longer there, cash flow as far as the inputs And then the outputs or the expenses really is going to be the next bullet point of triage. So we're going to prioritize that as looking and identifying the different expenses that I have right now. And does my current income or my reduced income exceed, match, or meet my existing outflows? That's important. Why is that important? Because really, at the end of the day, cash flow is the blood of a business. If we don't have that circulation of blood or cash flow in a business, then we will go into shock again, and we will become insolvent, essentially. So, which means we won't be able to pay our expenses, and that even creates more problems down the line. So if that is the case, our employees are safe, they're taken care of. Then going into the cash flow, identifying if the income is being reduced, then identifying the different expenses that are taking a bite out of the existing cash flow. Then how can I reduce certain expenses during this time as a part of the shock or the crisis that I'm going through? So those are just some examples of triage and how we can prioritize. The third one is the planning. And what do we mean by planning? And I love the graphic on here because it's actually just perfect for what we mean. And that is documenting what we're going to be doing over the next week, months during this crisis. So we've identified and what we've diagnosed as the problem. And let's just assume it's that cash flow crunch because our employees are safe. So the next one on the list of the triage would be the cash flow crunch. So we write that down, and we write down and delineate each individual item that we need to address from either an income standpoint or an outflow standpoint. And then what's the plan? So we can increase income, we can decrease expenses, or we could do nothing and hope that everything's going to be okay. And part of that plan, if it is to increase income, again, back to those three things that we talked about, there's even fourth and fifth that I didn't mention on this call, but there are other ways to generate and increase revenue during this time. The decreased expenses piece, prioritizing which ones are the easiest ones to adjust. There are different ways to decrease expenses, whether it be either rents, variable costs based on employees or staffing, different utilities that can now be reduced, but really we're not operating our businesses the way that we used to. So now the expenses should not be as high as they were in the past. Should is the key word, if we are the ones that take action now to reduce them. So that's the plan. And by planning, it's not just, okay, this is what I'm going to do. It is documenting exactly what I'm going to do. So literally having a checklist that you're going over and writing down, okay, here are the things that I'm going to do. Here are the phone calls I'm going to make. Here's the emails I'm going to be sending out. Here are the activities that I'm going to be doing to then execute my plan that I will start to tick off on my list of the things that I'm going to accomplish. Diagnose, triage, and planning is all and well, and there have been a million books written about all those things, but unless someone actually puts the rubber to the road or actually starts to execute and work the plan that they have put together, nothing changes. And that amounts essentially to burying our heads in the sand and just assuming that everything's going to be okay. Hopefully, and I know I don't sound very positive right now. I actually am extremely optimistic given the whole entire environment, but I will tell you this: if you don't assume that our businesses or your business is in a different environment than it was 3 weeks ago, it is. And hopefully I'm not your wake-up call 3 weeks into this thing, but if that's the reality of what I need to share right now, then that's fine. We are in a different environment, and we don't know how long this environment is going to happen. So it's okay to worry. It's okay to have anxiety, but at the same time, it's not okay to do nothing. So us as the primary leaders within our business, coming up with, again, what are those things that I'm going to triage and prioritize, putting the plan together, and then starting to execute on those right away. And then reassess. So this is a very fluid environment. That's a lot of the vernacular that we continue to hear in media and different emails from every company we've ever done business with. But looking at this literally every week. So the strategy may change from week to week. In fact, I'm hoping, like all of us are, in the next 1 to 2 months, however long it's going to take, that we do start to see some areas where it's like, hey, no, it's okay. Yeah, things went through, and now we can start to open up our treatment rooms again. But let's not miss the opportunity that we have right now, in that because of the shifting business environment, it's forcing us to get good at things to generate revenue that maybe we weren't as good at. And some of those things are calling our clients and emailing them, or hosting virtual consultations, or doing what we're doing now. We're doing multiple webinars every single day with several clients. So those are the types of skills that we're developing right now. And it's great because it does give us an opportunity to get better in those areas. One of my favorite things I was reading on, it was actually crisis management from, I don't think it was the CDC, it was some other resource I was reading. And it says the Chinese character for crisis is actually danger and opportunity. So we are in a collective crisis as a society right now. And as a business owner, we are the ones in charge of navigating those uncharted waters. So yes, there is real danger out there. We know that. We've talked about that. But that also means there's opportunity. So I love that analogy that Chinese character does in fact mean both, because we truly do believe that right now as well. How are we doing on time, Barry? Because I want to be respectful of everyone right now.
We are actually at the hour.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So let me shift. So
Drew, you can tell everybody, you wanted to talk about the raffle prizes that you have. What we're going to do is you can tell people what the raffle is, but we'll get you the information that you'll need to pick your winner and to email your winner.
Cool. All right. Awesome. So the first raffle prize we are going to give away, it's actually two of the same thing, but the one of the two that I was going to do is the first person to type in the chat box how many posts there have been for hashtag DMK Skin on Instagram. Whoever punches in the correct answer in the chat box right now. So if you go on Instagram and you pull up hashtag DMK Skin, whoever to punch that in the chat box. Oh, I see a chat box coming in right now.
Anna Perez says 1.7 million.
That's the number of treatments. So how many posts on Instagram?
Angela said 44,100.
Angela is correct. Congratulations.
Angela, so Angela, can you put your email address in the chat box, please?
Okay, so here's what you get. You are going to get a signed copy of Danae's brand new book, Skin Health. And I have it right here in my hand. It's amazing. It's awesome. It's actually very relevant. It only came out a few months ago too. So it's very relevant to skin conditions and new topics. And then also you're going to be receiving this DMK Fundamentals Kit, which as you open it up, there's some literature and a hand typed message from Danae himself. So we have that. A little bit more marketing material, but then a 30-day DMK Fundamentals Kit, which includes one of our signature enzyme therapy, and then 30 days of home care, along with a bowl, a brush, a headband, so you can treat your skin while we're staying at home and staying safe. You can do that in the luxury of your own home. So Barry, how did you want to run that raffle? Did you just want to give it away to someone, or did you want to do a quiz show? Or?
So you, so Angela sent me her email. And I'm putting it in she sent me her email address. I'm putting it in an email to you right now, so you guys can connect and send that out to her. And then you have another one that you want to do.
So we did the one for Angela, and then I'm sorry, yeah, I was going to do two. So
so do you have a do you want to do another? So Angela was the first person to respond with 44.1. Taylor Bradshaw was the second. So Taylor, what's your email address? Taylor Bradshaw, you won as well. So if you give us your email address, I will put that in an email to Drew.
All right, very cool. Okay, so based on time, I know we had a couple questions, and then I was gonna give you a code too. So next steps, I believe everyone can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Cool. So if you would like to learn more about DMK or our education, one of the questions that came through was opening order and whatnot. The best way to get started is we have a monthly webinar that we do. It's about 2 hours long, and we do a deep dive into cell biology, cosmetic chemistry. Again, we go over our approach to skin revision and what makes DMK unique and different. We answer all the questions that actually have been asked today, but normally this webinar, as you can see when you click on it, is $149. I'm going to give you a code right now for all of our listeners, and that code is DMK 2020. So if you type in DMK 2020 and you apply that to registration, you're going to save $50 on that registration today. What you receive when you register is what I just showed you, the DMK Fundamentals Kit with the bowl, brush, headband. and then 2 hours of live education that we go over. And I forgot to share that that kit in and of itself and the treatment is a value of $250 just for the kit itself. That's the retail value. And the webinar that you include for our winners that we just heard was another $150. So that's over $400 value of what those two winners just won. So yeah, punch in the code DMK 2020, and that is this specific just for lip gloss and aftershave. That's not something that we just put out there for anybody. So that's for Barry and Jenny.
Thank you, Drew. So, Drew, I am so grateful that you took the time out. This was truly exceptional. We had several people comment that Diane Hall commented that she was so grateful for this webinar. She learned a lot. It's great to see you back up and healthy. I was a little freaked out when you texted me that you had that accident and you were in those hospitals and all that. And that's it. We're going to have replays on the Lip Gloss and Aftershave mobile app. What I can do, Drew, is I have little images of that to download the app and links to it. I can get you those. So if you want to get those out to your community so that they can download the app to watch the replay, it would be perfect. This was amazing.
I can't tell you, Drew, that was mind-blowing. You are so relevant. It was absolutely amazing, and I think really uplifting for our community. So thank you for taking the time.
Okay, we have two questions that come in. Refined Skin Clinic, it is DMK 2020. That's the code.
DMK
and one more time.
DMK 2020. Yep.
Yeah, and then Jessica wants to know, where do you sign up for the monthly educational webinar?
Yeah, so just go to DanaeMking.com. So here's our website right here.
Sorry, I took your screen. You can put it back up.
So you go to DanaeMking.com. That's our homepage, and just click on education, and it'll pull up a listing of our upcoming education, whether it be webinar or in-person trainings. So a lot of digital right now, though, obviously.
Yeah, and also Gigi Green noticed that Drew doesn't have a hair out of place, but we hate him for that because it's amazing.
It's got to be the stylist, you know. I don't know. Yeah, that's.
All right, you guys. It's
Thank
a wrap.
you
Day one was
so
amazing.
much.
You were the act that brought it home. Thank you so much. Please, when you speak to Danae, tell him I said hello. Hello to everybody else that are in the DMK family that I haven't seen in forever. So that's about it. Thank you guys so much for everything, and we'll see you tomorrow. Look for your invitation to join in your inbox around 8:30 or 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll get that ready for you in the morning, and we're good to go. Everybody have a great day.
Have a good night.